Hey, it's good to be with you. I'm Richard Bewes, and I'm inviting you to join with me in consideration of one of the Psalms from the Bible, Psalm 30 and verse 5, these words: "Weeping may remain for a night, but rejoicing comes in the morning." There's a Chinese legend about a man and his wife who, after years of waiting for a child in their family, finally had their desires granted, and a little boy was born to them. A genie then appeared in the middle of the night and offered them a wish, one wish for their child. And the man and wife thought about it, and they finally said, "We wish that our child will never experience any pain." "Oh, no," said the genie. "No, not that. Anything but that. That can only bring disaster." But the man and his wife were determined. "No," they insisted. "We made our choice. We desire that our child will never experience suffering or any pain." And with a cry of despair, the genie vanished in a puff of smoke. It was as well that the man and his wife never lived long enough to realize the fulfillment of their desire. That child grew to be a terrible tyrant in the land. Every whim of his was granted. Nothing was denied him. No sorrow of others caused him any pain at all. No frustration ever came his way. He lost all his friends. No one loved him. And his final isolation became his own miserable and self-inflicted hell. Well, no person or philosophy that promises a carefree existence has any credibility in the world as we know it. As the Spanish proverb puts it, all sunshine makes a desert. Certain brands of political leadership will offer their devotees a utopian carefree existence, a wonderful life, perfectible and attainable right here, a sort of workers' paradise. But as Leslie Newbegin once wrote, the project of bringing heaven down to earth always results in bringing hell up from below. True, the world is created good, and if evil is with us now, it's here not as a product of the good, but as a product of our own deliberate defection from the good. And out of our rebellion has stemmed all the pain and conflict and sorrow and death that we know today. And the story of the Bible is the love story of our Creator in dealing with our basic human rebellion, in the sending of his messengers and prophets, in the bringing together of a family of belief, of coming himself in the person of his Son, Jesus Christ, there on the cross intercepting the judgment and hell into which our rebellion had pitched us. Millions of people around the world have accepted his offer of free forgiveness and the friendship of Jesus in their daily lives, both in this life and the life to come. And the day will come when the creation itself around us will be freed from decay and disaster, from pain and grief, in the new heaven and the new earth that will be ushered in when Christ comes back finally, visibly, bodily, and in judgment and universally at the end of time. Until then, we learn to live with pain and adversity. But for the believer, these things can, with God at our side, be part of the building process that makes us more like him in character. Even before Jesus' birth on earth, the psalmist David recognized this. Back to our sentence, Psalm 30, verse 5, "Weeping may remain for a night, but joy comes in the morning." Weeping and joy. What do you know of these two lodgers in your own life? You may have had the experience of having two people staying in your house, very differing in personality, one causing exhaustion all the time and the other causing inspiration. It seems that this was something of David the psalmist's feelings as he looked back towards the end of his life. He could remember occasions when disaster stared him in the face, when there were other times when the sun seemed to come out. I'm looking at verse 6 here. "When I felt secure, I said, I shall never be shaken. But when you," that is the Lord, "hid your face, I was dismayed." So it is part of the building of David as a man of God, the disappointments the setbacks and often preceding the times of advance and celebration. In no way, then, was King David ever going to resemble the boy of the Chinese legend who became king and experienced no pain, not at all. This is part of our building up as people and as disciples too. Look at it again. Weeping may remain for a night, but joy comes in the morning. The German theologian Hestenberg wrote once that weeping is almost personified here, like a sort of modern backpacking, travelling person who stays as your lodger all night, then in the morning leaves. And then after him another lodger arrives, namely joy. It's almost certain that, like me, you know something of this experience. And the knowledge that the lodgers can switch overnight, one after the other, is a help to believing people, just to know that. First, it makes us humble. The fact is that this basic pattern of life means that none of us, however rich or self-protected, can guarantee our own well-being and security even for the next 24 hours. The smallest thing can bring us down. You can be riding high and suddenly, bang, inflation sets in and you've lost your job. Or you wake up in the coronary care unit. Or, like David, some unseen enemy brings you down. Or just a freak of the weather conditions brings havoc into your life. Well, they know all about that in places like Haiti or Indonesia or even in Florida. It can happen anywhere. Knowing this common pattern of the switching lodgers makes us humble. 2, it makes us hopeful. Weeping may remain for a night, it says, but joy comes in the morning. This can happen when bereavement strikes. It's like the progress from a long night to a promising new dawn. Slowly it happens. So slowly, the heavy darkness that is almost physical becomes imperceptibly grey. And then the grey begins to show faint streaks of pink. And very slowly a new dawn begins to come into our lives. And hope rises once again. Not that you are the same person ever again. You're not. But, and it'll be others who notice it about you, there will be a new depth in your life, born of grief, inevitably. Yet, instead of becoming more depleted as a person, it's possible that we emerge stronger from these experiences. Not weaker, but wiser. Not embittered, outward looking, not inwardly shriveled. The loving support and steady prayers of others will do that for us gradually. It was Ruth Graham, the late Ruth Graham, wife of the preacher Billy Graham, who in one of her poems ended with the encouragement, "Look up, bereaved, it won't be long till dawn." No, it won't be long. This pattern of life that David knew so well, of the night lodger, whom he calls weeping, being replaced by the morning lodger, joy, surely did keep him hopeful. It taught him to trust God all the days of his life, not knowing for sure what each day would bring, and yet still knowing, as he puts it in verse 5, that God's favour, I'm quoting, lasts a lifetime. That's the permanent part of the whole deal. Whatever a day may bring, nothing can take away the constant friendship of the Lord away from one of his own followers. Are you one of them? Then he'll be with you forever, regardless of what happens. So, to be aware of this likely switching of lodgers at any one time makes us humble and it makes us hopeful. Anything else? Yes, thirdly, I think it makes us holy. Think again about that first part of verse 5. Here it is. God's anger, says David, he knew when he displeased the Lord, his creator. That anger, he says, lasts only a moment. David had done many wrong things. He'd committed adultery. He'd committed even murder. Yet as he repented of the wrong, he was given forgiveness free and fully. Judgment became a thing of the past. What is to be a lasting blessing over his lifetime was right there, verse 5, his favour. God's love and favour resting upon us from the moment we begin to trust him. It meant that whichever of the two lodgers might be with him at any one time, weeping or joy, it was in fact the Lord himself who was in permanent residence and who was working his own work of favour, whether through adversity or success, to make David into a godly person. That being so, nothing else mattered at all. The fact is that that's how we grow in character. The Apostle Paul, in the book of Romans, could even write, "We rejoice in our sufferings because we know that suffering produces perseverance, and perseverance, character." As D.L. Moody of Chicago once said, character is the only thing we can take into the next life. I think of a senior Christian leader in England, John Taylor by name. At one point he was our Anglican Bishop of St. Albans. I once heard him describe perhaps the most stressful situation he ever went through. And at one point he picked up a devotional Christian book, Daily Light it's called. I got a copy here. In it he found a text of scripture that he'd never noticed before. "In all my stress and anxiety," he said, "I read these words from the book of Job, chapter 23 and verse 10. These were the words, 'He knoweth the way that I take. When he hath tried me, I shall come forth as gold.'" "And," said the bishop, "I felt my heart leap within me. I almost fell out of bed with the joy of reading it. And I knew that God understood the pressures on me, and they were part of his refining process through suffering and strain." Actually, when you come to think of it, it's noticeable that the most effective people in this life are again and again to be found among those who've had a rough time and who've suffered. And how did all this affect the psalmist here? It made him humble. It made him hopeful. It made him holy. He may not have fallen out of bed with joy, but the psalm ends in verse 11 and 12 with him wanting to dance. And as he puts it, "that my heart may sing to you and not be silent. O Lord my God, I will give you thanks forever." Just to know that weeping and joy are genuinely part and parcel of everyday Christian living. Just to know that ought to prevent you and me from ever wanting to think of some genie to be around who could prevent us from ever feeling pain. Instead, let's say this to each other as we close off. For the believer, whichever lodger happens to be with us at this moment, it's the Lord himself who is in permanent residence. Besides that, nothing else matters at all.